There are more than 30 million firearms chambered in 22 long rifle, currently in circulation across the United States. It is the single most common cartridge in the country, yet the overwhelming majority of people who own one have never been given a clear picture of what they actually hold. For decades, the industry has presented it as a casual plinker, a first rifle for beginners, or an inexpensive training round tossed into a range bag without much thought. That framing exists because the real capabilities of this cartridge do not drive sales of high-dollar Magnum rifles or premium optics. What the marketing never mentions is far more useful. Your barrel can be costing you velocity on every shot. Premium-priced ammunition is often less consistent than the cheapest bulk box on the shelf. Hollow point designs frequently fail to perform the way most shooters expect. And the forensic record sitting in medical examiner files across the country paints a very different picture of this little round than the toy gun narrative suggests. If you own a .22 long rifle and have never examined these points, you are leaving practical advantages unused. Secret number 8. Barrel length is working against many shooters. Start with a detail that immediately saves money and weight. When a .22 long rifle is fired from a barrel longer than 18 inches, the extra length is not helping. It is reducing performance. The powder charge inside a standard .22 long rifle case is small and burns extremely fast. Combustion is essentially complete within the first 16 inches or so of barrel. Beyond that point, the bullet is no longer accelerating. Friction against the rifling begins to slow it down. A 24-inch barrel does not deliver higher velocity. It delivers lower velocity, added weight, and higher cost. Chronograph data collected over decades of published testing shows the practical peak sits between 16 and 18 inches. That range consistently produces the highest average speeds and the tightest velocity spreads. For any serious purpose, hunting, training, or field use, look for a 16-inch barrel with a threaded muzzle. You gain maximum velocity, minimum overall weight, and the ability to add a suppressor when quiet operation is desired. Anything longer than 18 inches is marketing, not ballistics. Secret number 7. Hypervelocity loads are largely a sales story past short range. Boxes labeled CCI Stinger, Aguila Interceptor, or Federal Punch advertise muzzle velocities of 1,600 to 1,700 feet per second and usually cost $1 or $2 more per box. The implied promise is that faster is always better. That promise collapses beyond 50 yards. A hypervelocity .22 long rifle round leaves the muzzle above the speed of sound, roughly 1,125 feet per second, depending on conditions. Because the bullet is light and has a poor ballistic coefficient, it sheds speed rapidly. Somewhere between 50 and 75 yards it passes through the transonic zone. At that transition, the bullet encounters turbulent airflow, begins to yaw, and group sizes open dramatically. Consistency disappears. The expensive ammunition effectively becomes a scatter load at distance. Walk the firing line at any serious NRL 22 or precision rimfire match, and you will see the top competitors loading standard velocity or deliberately subsonic ammunition, around 1,000 to 1,050 feet per second. Those rounds never go supersonic, and therefore never hit the transonic disturbance. They remain stable from muzzle to target. The practical rule is straightforward. Use CCI standard velocity or SK standard plus for any work past 25 yards. Keep hypervelocity for close-range applications under 25 yards, where impact energy matters more than long-range consistency. For hunting, training, and precision work, standard velocity wins and costs less. Secret number 6. Hollow points do not expand reliably in this velocity class. In centerfire defensive cartridges, 9mm 45 ACP, or 308, hollow point ammunition is standard doctrine. The cavity is expected to open, increase frontal area, and dump energy while limiting over-penetration. That expectation does not transfer cleanly to .22 long rifle. Expansion requires hydraulic pressure generated by velocity. The .22 long rifle simply does not produce enough of it. At the muzzle, expansion is already inconsistent. At 50 yards, where velocity has dropped further, it becomes a coin toss. At 100 yards, it essentially stops. When a hollow point cavity fails to open, the shooter ends up with the worst of both worlds. Poorer aerodynamics than a solid round nose, which hurts accuracy, and shallower penetration than a solid profile, which reduces terminal effect. You paid extra for ammunition that flies less predictably and hits with less authority. Across practical uses, hunting, small game procurement, and general field work, the better choice is a 36 to 40 grain solid lead round nose. It flies straighter, penetrates more consistently, and reaches vital structures more reliably than light hollow points that fail to expand. Two solid options are CCI Minimag 40 grain round nose for semi-automatics, where reliable cycling and good grouping matter, and Federal Automatch 40 grain for high-volume practice. Both are consistent and reasonably priced. The physics of this velocity range simply do not support hollow point designs the way higher pressure cartridges do. Secret number 5. .22 long rifle is one of the dirtiest cartridges in common use. Open a fresh box and you will notice a faint crayon-like smell. That odor is wax. The .22 long rifle still uses a heel-based bullet design that dates to the 19th century. Unlike modern centerfire cartridges in which the bullet sits inside a case neck, the .22 bullet is the same diameter as the case and protrudes outside it. There is no neck to hide lubricant, so a layer of sticky wax is applied over the exposed lead surface to reduce leading in the bore. That exposed wax collects lint, dust, and grit. When the round fires, the wax vaporizes and mixes with unburned powder, forming a thick carbon residue that coats the action. In a straight blowback semi-automatic, Ruger 1022, Smith & Wesson M&P 15-22, Seam MMG Bravo, and similar designs, this residue is driven directly into the bolt raceway, extractor channel, and firing pin tunnel. After 300 to 500 rounds, the bolt begins to slow. Stovepipes and failures to feed follow. Subsonic ammunition in a fouled action often will not cycle at all. This is not a reason to abandon semi-automatics. It is a reason to maintain them on a schedule. Clean every 300 rounds under normal conditions, or every 150 rounds if shooting primarily subsonic. Use ballistol or a quality CLP. Avoid aggressive solvents that can damage polymer parts. A simple kit, a bore snake, nylon brush, and small bottle of lubricant, weighs almost nothing and keeps the rifle functional. Manual action rifles, bolt, lever, or pump, largely escape this problem. There is no gas system or blowback dependency. The shooter operates the action regardless of residue. In any extended period without cleaning supplies, a manual action .22 remains the more reliable platform. Secret number 4. Every .22 long rifle is subject to the occasional misfire. This is not a manufacturing defect. It is inherent in the design. Centerfire cartridges use a separate primer cup and anvil pressed into the center of the case head. The firing pin strikes the center, and ignition is highly reliable. Rimfire works differently. During manufacture, a wet priming compound measured in microliters is deposited in the bottom of a thin brass case. Then the case is spun at high speed, so centrifugal force distributes the compound into the hollow rim. That process is statistically imperfect. Microscopic voids, bubbles, or dry spots can remain. If the firing pin happens to strike one of those voids, the result is a click instead of a bang. Premium ammunition from CCI, Lapua, or SK typically shows misfire rates around 1 in 5,000 to 1 in 10,000. Bulk ammunition can run 1 in 1,000 or higher. The thin rim, only 4 to 6 thousandths of an inch, also limits chamber pressure to roughly 24,000 psi. Modern centerfire rifle cartridges operate at 55 to 62,000 psi. Exceeding the rimfire pressure limit risks rupturing the case and venting gas rearward. Practical workarounds exist. If a round fails to fire, open the action, rotate the cartridge 90 degrees, and try again. The firing pin will strike a different section of the rim, and most of the time the second attempt succeeds. Buying premium ammunition costs only a few dollars more per box of 50, and delivers measurably lower misfire rates. Most importantly, do not treat .22 long rifle as a primary defensive cartridge. A misfire rate acceptable for hunting or training is not acceptable when lives are at stake. Keep a reliable centerfire handgun for personal protection and let the .22 handle everything else. Secret number 3. Twist rate mismatch is a frequent cause of poor accuracy. If a bullet hole on target appears oval or keyholed instead of clean and round, the ammunition and barrel are not matched. Every rifled barrel has a twist rate, the distance required for the rifling to complete one full rotation of the bullet. The industry standard for .22 long rifle is 1 turn in 16 inches, written 1/16. That rate is optimized for the classic 30 to 40 grain projectiles that make up the vast majority of available ammunition. Load a 60 grain Aguila Sniper subsonic into the same barrel, and the bullet is too long to stabilize at that twist. It leaves the muzzle, begins to tumble within a few feet, and strikes the target sideways. The opposite problem occurs when a light 32 grain hypervelocity bullet is fired through a fast twist 1/9 barrel. Excessive spin amplifies any microscopic imperfections in the lead core, and groups open up. The simple rule covers most shooters. If you use standard 36 to 40 grain ammunition, which accounts for roughly 90% of what is sold, a standard 1/116 barrel is ideal. There is no need to chase specialty barrels. Pair 1/16 twist with standard velocity 36 to 40 grain loads, and you have the most accurate, reliable, and affordable combination available. Only consider a faster twist if you specifically intend to shoot heavy subsonic ammunition through a suppressor. For everyone else, the standard combination is the answer. Secret number 2. .22 long rifle functions as highly practical post-collapse currency. This point has little to do with ballistics and everything to do with economics. When formal currency systems fail, societies revert to barter. Effective barter goods share 5 characteristics. They must be portable, divisible, universally recognized, intrinsically useful, and durable. .22 long rifle meets all 5. 500 rounds weigh roughly 3 pounds and fit in a cargo pocket, higher density than almost any other common ammunition. It is infinitely divisible. A single round, a handful, or a full brick can be traded. Nearly every gun owner in the United States owns at least one firearm that can fire it, so recognition is immediate. Every round carries intrinsic value, potential food through small game harvest, or potential security through defensive capability. Properly stored in a cool, dry environment, it remains functional for 25 years or longer. In any barter economy, 50 rounds could exchange for food, water, medicine, or information. No other common caliber combines this portability, recognition, and practical utility at such a low price point. When building a stockpile, treat the ammunition not only as something to shoot, but also as a compact, widely accepted store of value. Secret number 1. The forensic record on .22 long rifle is more significant than its paper energy figures suggest. For decades, this cartridge has accounted for a disproportionate share of gunshot wound casework, not because it is the most powerful round on paper, but because it is by far the most common. In some countries, forensic data have listed it as the single deadliest civilian caliber by case volume. In the United States, 9mm still leads overall fatal shootings, yet the sheer number of .22 long rifle rounds fired each year keeps its forensic footprint large. On paper, the numbers look modest, roughly 100 to 150 foot-pounds of muzzle energy, compared with more than 1,200 for 5.56 NATO, or 2,600 for .308 Winchester. By conventional energy metrics, it should be almost irrelevant. It is not. Forensic pathologists describe what is sometimes called the assassin's paradox. Because the bullet is light, relatively slow, and has low sectional density, it becomes unstable the moment it enters denser tissue. Unlike a high-velocity full metal jacket projectile that tends to travel in a relatively straight channel, the 22 long rifle bullet begins to tumble and yaw almost immediately. That tumbling increases the surface area contacting tissue and creates a wound path larger than the bullet's diameter would suggest. When the bullet encounters bone, rib, skull, or shoulder blade, it often lacks the energy to exit cleanly. Instead, it can deflect, sometimes changing direction by 90 degrees, and travel an unpredictable internal path that damages multiple organs from a single entry wound. Autopsy records document cases in which 1.22 long rifle bullet produced injury to 3, 4, or 5 separate structures along a track no surgeon could anticipate. That combination of quiet report, small size, and unpredictable terminal behavior is why the cartridge has appeared in the toolkits of professional assassins, intelligence services, and organized crime for much of the last century. The takeaway is not casual treatment. It is absolute respect. Every round chambered at the range, in the field, or held in storage carries genuine lethality. Marketing calls it a starter cartridge. Forensic science records it as one of the most frequently lethal rounds in civilian casework. Respect the difference between advertising language and reality. Taken together, these 8 points show that the 22 long rifle is neither a toy nor a mere beginner's round. It is the most widely owned and most frequently misunderstood cartridge in America. Match barrel length to the powder charge. Choose ammunition that stays stable and penetrates consistently. Maintain the rifle according to its design. And stop accepting the industry narrative that this round is insignificant. Ballistic testing, forensic data, and more than a century of practical use say otherwise. 3 practical lines to remember. Barrel length 16 to 18 inches, preferably threaded. Ammunition standard velocity solid round nose 36 to 40 grains. Mindset: treat it with the respect due any lethal cartridge. Drop your preferred 22 long rifle load in the comments. Subscribe to Gun 45 and hit the bell so you do not miss the next video. More is on the way.